news, everyone.
This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Let's get dangerous.
He's opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
You just made the list! Who are you talking to?
No one! Your mama! Shut up! Take your pick!
Take that, you bucket of bolts. Oh, I'm sorry, is that offensive?
You all know me, know how I make my living. You don't need a plan. You need a scheme. A cockamamie one.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No. Burn.
Game on, you ducks. Sorry for the layoff. We had Meany's wedding. Chris Meany, friend of the podcast. You've heard of him on the podcast. You probably listened to this podcast. I just said that a lot, podcast, because we were together for quite a while. So anyway, he got married. Great trip in Nova Scotia, through the States, back in New York for Flex. I'm assuming some of you that I met actually listened to this podcast. There, I said it again. But we are back. It's going to be once a week at least, if not more. And the season is coming, just like football being back. I'm back and here to stay for quite a while. And what I'm going to do over the next couple weeks is kind of do a position by position overall thought process, strategy, some buzzy names, some names I'm looking at, so forth. If you like that, let me know. Hopefully you're rate, review, subscribe, and all that type of stuff already. But if you don't, feel free to message me, send me something on Twitter, if I'll see it, maybe on Blue Sky, whatever it is. If you want some other topics, hit anything that you are looking for. That's what we're here for. Right? We also have the chats, the Discord's coming back over at The Athletic. I'm in the comments over there. You guys know this. I'm here for you. And now we're going to dive in, and it's going to be quarterbacks to start. Like I said, position by position, why not start with the quarterback position? I know everybody's like, I want to start running back. No, quarterback. That's what I'm doing. So, strategy for this year. And I think you guys probably know this, but in case you're new, my strategy is always the Ricky Bobby approach. It is first or last. And despite the fact that this year, I think the first is 6 names, so I guess it's not as first and lasty as it had been in the past, where it might have been only 3 or 4 names. I have a tier 1 and 2. I'm actually happy to get the tier 2 guys if they're there and around the 6th round range. Tier 1 being Josh Allen, Drake May, Lamar Jackson. I will take any of those. If they're there late 3rd, early 4th, I would prefer late 4th, but again, it depends on your league. You guys know how your league mates draft. And depending on how the board falls, and if I feel like the tiers at running back and wide receiver are all the same, which we'll talk about on those podcasts, but especially when it comes to wide receiver, I think they're getting even tighter group than they have been in years past. Actually, if you want to go check out the mock draft I did with Chris Harris on his podcast, and we had video for that as well, we talk about, it's been a little bit of a layoff, talk about the wide receivers and how things are changing. But anyway, those are the top 3. I kind of prefer getting the second 3. I have Daniels, Burrow, and Jalen Hurts. I'm getting a lot of Jaden Daniels so far because I think people are burnt from last year because he got hurt, and I'm not certain what the reasoning is behind this, because we went from a terrific rookie season. We had the injury last year, sure, but let's remember this time last year when Jaden Daniels was being drafted as a top 3 quarterback because of what he did as a rookie. And not only what he did with his legs, because that's the upside of Jaden Daniels, not quite Lamar Jackson, 1,000 yards, but not too far behind it. And the fact that he was a pretty dang good passer for a rookie, for somebody who was thought of as mostly legs. So all that being said, he gets hurt and now nobody wants anything to do with him. And I'm really curious about that. And of course, that's tongue in cheek. People are taking him, but people don't seem to want to take him inside the top 6 quarterbacks or even the top 5. I have him at 4. And just like last year, if there was a uncommon name, not the Josh Allen, not the Lamar Jacksons, that finished as the QB1 in fantasy points per game, I think Jaden Daniels deserves to still be in that conversation. So anyway, a lot of Jaden Daniels in the 5th, 6th round, late 5th, early 6th. Again, I prefer 6th. Same for Burrow and Hurts. But if I don't get one of them, I am waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Obviously, some of your leagues might draft 2 quarterbacks for half your team. So you don't want to wait and then get all the way down to what is tier 4 of quarterbacks, where I'm talking about some of the names that we'll cover later, but like the Jordan Love, CJ Strouds, and some others. Those aren't even the names I was going to bring up. I'd rather hit into my tier 3, which you can see on the site, by the way, and in the rankings widget, it has them all break down. But it starts with Dak Prescott, ends with Matthew Stafford. And yes, I'm going to talk about Stafford and why he's 15, and I want to put him higher. But anyway, we'll get to him in a second. So if I don't get tier 1 or 2, I have actually ended up with a lot of Dak Prescott because he's not even the first name that seems to go in this tier, not even the third or fourth name sometimes because people are chasing the upside, which I have no problem with. Chase upside. You want a quarterback that can potentially be top 5 because if you are living in the tier 3 world, then... Sorry, I stopped because the Barbie World song just popped into my head and it kind of just threw me for a loop. Living in the Barbie world. Oh, no, wait. Is it living in the Barbie world? No, no. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Yeah. It's fantastic. Wrapped in plastic. But what's the living in the world? I don't know. I'm sure somebody will let me know. I think I'm combining 2 songs. Anyway, back to this. If you're living in this world, I do want to chase top 5 and not just a quarterback who's getting 17 points per game, and then all the way down to quarterback 16, who's getting 16 points per game, because that 1 point a week difference is really not one that's going to matter for your end game. So that being said, if I am targeting a quarterback here, I do want, and I was staring Stafford in the face, and I feel like he's yelling at me through the screen of like, I just did that, and yet you have me down at the bottom of this tier. But again, I'll talk about him in a second. Chase the upside, chase the upside, chase the upside. So I'm going for Dak Prescott in a lot of places because 5,000 yards is on the table any year he stays healthy, especially with this makeup of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens as his top 2. So I'm getting a lot of Dak. I'll continue to get a lot of Dak. And this is where I have often lived just because I like how my teams turn out. I do have Daniels in a few places. I have Hurts. I even have Drake May in one league. And I like the rosters. I like having that advantage at quarterback where I know I'm hitting 20 points per game. But that being said, I like the team build and make up better by being able to get running backs and wide receivers. So that's my strategies of overall. And then if I miss tier 1 or 2, if you are playing SuperFlex before I get to the names again, this is a completely different ballgame. So your QB2 needs to be dependent on your QB1. And what I mean by that is that if you take a top 3, like basically if you take top 6, but specifically if you take top 3, if you take Allen, May, or Jackson, and I know things can go sideways, but you're coming into this draft, you're taking a top 5 pick, I'm assuming, in most leagues on one of those players, you now have a distinct advantage. If you have Allen, May, or Lamar Jackson, you are better than 9 teams, maybe even 10 or 11, especially if you have Allen, you're expecting to be better than 11 teams at quarterback. And why I say this is why it determines your second quarterback is because if you wait and you wait and wait and wait because you love the values elsewhere, and then you end up with your second quarterback being Baker Mayfield that I brought up, or I didn't even say his name yet, did I? But a Baker Mayfield, a Goff, a Stroud, Love, those are fine, and you still have a strong quarterback duo, but because your second quarterback now likely has 8 to 9 teams with a second better quarterback than you brought yourself back to the middle of the pack. Like you threw away your advantage of Josh Allen, Drake May, Lamar Jackson, but especially Josh Allen. You threw away your advantage. You have an advantage over all your teams, and you need to lean into that. It goes to an entire strategy of in general. If you're drafting running back early, wide receiver early, depending on how the draft falls, you're not going to be better than 10 teams at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So if you have one of those advantages, you need to lean into it and not throw it away because that's where you come out with a basically equitable draft to everybody else at best, if not behind. So anyway, if you draft one of those, top 3, I want another top 15 quarterback, if not better, because I want to hold that advantage. If I end up with that 4, 5, 6 picks of quarterbacks, Daniels, Burrow, Hurts, still leaning for that top 15. Might have a little bit more flexibility to dip to like Malik Willis, who I will talk about, Jared Goff, those type of quarterbacks where you still have somewhat of an advantage, like you're sitting more middle of the pack QB2 than top end, but you still have somewhat of an advantage. If you're in tier 3, if you get into the Dak Prescott realm down the Stafford and more, I will try to double dip in there just to kind of catch the heels of everybody else, but I'm more likely to be a team that has, Lawrence and then a Goff, and then I draft a third quarterback before other teams start thinking about it or start doing it, and I'm left holding the bag because you're trying to play catch up, so you're trying to get your name into that top group to challenge the Josh Allen, Drake May, Lamar Jackson teams. So getting that third quarterback before anybody else can gives you that opportunity to take a real flyer, a real shot at that top group, like maybe a Cam Ward, who we'll talk about. But so those are the 2 strategies between regular single quarterback and SuperFlex, overall strategies of how you come out with better teams. And now, like I said, we'll talk about specific players. I already talked about Daniels, kind of talked about Dak. Actually, I did talk about Dak. Those are 2 of my favorites. Might as well keep with the D's here. And Jackson Dart's another one. Most sites, I think I haven't found a site yet, that include his first 2 games for no reason. He stepped on the field for a handful of plays, and now those 2 games come to his points per game, which shouldn't because they're irrelevant. So let's take actually when Jackson Dart was starting for the rest of the season. And Jackson Dart averaged 20 fantasy points per game. Where does that put him? QB5. What did he do last year with Malik Neighbors? 1 game before Malik Neighbors got hurt. So for all the concerns about Jackson Dart and his weapons, and if Neighbors isn't 100% what might happen this year, it can't get worse than last year. And he was already QB5 because why? What do you guys know? And what is the truth when it comes to fantasy? Rushing matters at quarterback, and the rushing upside continues to be such a difference maker. If you want to talk about changing the scoring in fantasy, I get it because of that reason, but hey, we still live in the world where nothing's changed, and the majority of every league you play on and every single site is going to give 1 for 10 rushing or receiving yards and 1 for 25 passing. So to reference it as I do every time, Daniel Jones, years ago, as the Giants quarterback, ran for 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, didn't even throw a touchdown per game, not a lot of passing yards, and guess what? He was QB 10. So you're giving me the upside of Jackson Dart rushing with the potential that we already saw better passing than Daniel Jones, similar to Jaden Daniels, someone of his rookie season, if you just look at the sample of him being under quarterback. And I know there's concerns about Dart's game. I had concerns about, I wasn't the biggest Dart fan coming out of college, but for fantasy purposes, yeah, somebody that could put his name inside that top 6, that tier 2, absolutely. Lots of Jackson Dart so far. To get to Stafford, let's talk about him. The big issue with Stafford, with Dak, he does give you a little bit of rushing, and I know 250 yards isn't a big deal, 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns isn't a big deal, but it's just enough. I'm being nitpicky. And the truth is, it really comes down to the fact that the difference between Dak Prescott, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier on. Dak Prescott 7 and Matt Stafford at 15 is like 1 fantasy point per game. Like, to nitpick through this group, like, I want Stafford in some leagues. I'm going to take the chance. Maybe he replicates last year. And you look at this group. Hey, I'll just run through the group real quick. Dak Prescott, Jackson Dart, Trevor Lawrence, by the way, QB2 once he started taking off in the second half from that time for the second half of the season until the end of the year. So you can make an argument for him. Patrick Mahomes being healthy at 10, question mark, but does he run as much? Caleb Williams taking a next step forward, but hey, by the way, still didn't even throw for 4,000 yards last year. Justin Herbert, healthy offensive line, super efficient. Brock Purdy, Bo Nix, and Matt Stafford. Just look, Dak Prescott, addressed him, Dart rushing upside, Trevor Lawrence rushing, it's not to the Dart level, but rushing upside and went bananas. Patrick Mahomes has to do it more with his arm. I don't think he's going to run as much as this year as he has in the past, mostly because of that injury, but again, he's Patrick Mahomes. Caleb Williams, some rushing. I'm actually seemingly lower than a lot of people on him because of that, because he's not going to be putting up 500, 600, 700 on the ground. It'll be chipped in, and somebody who still hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards and probably won't get much past that this year, even with the ascension of Ben Johnson. Like, I don't see Caleb Williams throwing for 4,500 yards and 35 to 40 touchdowns, so that's why he's at 11 for me. Justin Herbert, I have concerns of the pace of play. It was already one of the slowest offenses in the league, and Mike McDaniel continues to be one of, like, his entire time calling the plays with the Dolphins was bottom 5 in plays per game. They just bleed the clock. And it's not that he can't be super efficient, that being Herbert and McDaniel in this offense in general. It's just, we're nitpicking. We're looking for a little bit different reasons. If you want to take Herbert at the top of this tier, I'm okay with it. Bo Nix, some rushing upside again. And for a while there, we were talking about how amazing Bo Nix was. And you know what? If we just can we get fourth quarter Bo Nix for 17 games? Because we probably put him at like QB3, if not higher. And then Matt Stafford. So all those names, you want to take any of them. I'm not going to hate you too much for it. It's like I said, I'm living in this range, and I'll diversify a little bit. Dart and Dak seem to be my 2 most rostered so far. A decent amount of Lawrence, and even though I talked down Justin Herbert because of the pace of play, I'm ending up with a decent amount. And then Matt Stafford, because it seems like most leagues aren't trying to replicate. Maybe it's the injury risk people are concerned about. So before we get out of here, a reminder, these are quick hit episodes. That's why I like to try and get you in and out. You can listen during a workout, a walk, making food, whatever it might be. Trying to satisfy the market for the one thing that you don't get in and out without having to listen to a 45-minute podcast. But anyway, deeper down the list. So the players that I specifically wanted to touch on, I already have, and I wasn't expecting to go through the entire tier 3, but that's what happens. So let's talk about tier 4 of Malik Willis being the first, rushing upside. You talk about somebody that could run for 1,000 yards, could be Lamar Jackson just purely on the ground. Malik Willis is the other name, even more so than Jaden Daniels. Do I think it necessarily happens playing for the Dolphins? No, but it could. And it could just be as a necessity because we all make the joke and know that he's throwing to a bunch of who are they kind of guys, rookies and castaways from other teams. And we'll be talking about the wide receivers and then the tight end, Greg Dulcich, on another episode. But Malik Willis is one that I'm taking a lot of flyers on, not as my only quarterback. This is where I said before, I will live if I take a Brock Purdy, pair him with Malik Willis, a Stafford Willis, Dak Willis. Just basically anybody in tier 3, if I could get with Malik Willis, I will, because now I have 2 bullets to chase that top 5 upside. Outside of him, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is essentially Matthew Stafford. We're just 2 years removed from him being in the conversation of MVP, and then he got hurt. Ibuka got hurt. The offensive line got hurt. Like, everything. People focus on the 49ers. The Buccaneers might be next to a power station too, because they dealt with a ton of injuries last year and players playing through those injuries. So Baker Mayfield bouncing back and potentially being top 6 would not shock me. Obviously not drafting him anywhere near there, but for somebody that kind of just did the year before Matthew Stafford, there's no reason if everybody stays healthy that Baker can't be at least a QB1. So especially in SuperFlex, getting a good share of Baker Mayfield. I see a lot of people in a Tyler Shuck, and I understand it, but I think part of that is perception, is the fact that Shuck wasn't amazing in the second half. He wasn't terrific as a quarterback. It just was so bad before him that by comparison, we're like, oh my God, this offense actually works. A quarterback that knows how to throw more than 5 yards downfield. And he does run a little bit, but that's kind of, I feel, I would expect it to be more in that Baker Mayfield 2 years ago, like maybe 350, 400 yards, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns on the ground, which matters. Hell, that puts you into a group where we're talking about moving you just if the numbers were exactly the same. Like if you had 6 quarterbacks all within the range of 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, obviously that just puts him into the back-end QB1 conversation by doing so. But that's more my question is, does he pass for that much? And I do love the addition of Jordan Tyson, but this is somebody that wasn't throwing a touchdown some games barely doing the 200-yard mark. Again, not expecting him to just replicate last year and not take a step forward, but I'm a little bit lower. Like I have Shuck in the conversation of Goff, Mayfield, and Love. Like, so if you want to take them, I don't care because we're in tier 4. We are shooting for pure upside. So that's my biggest takeaway. Going to keep hammering that point home. And the last one being Cam Ward. This is the same thing. He actually doesn't run that much. He isn't going to be running for 600-700 yards. That's just the truth about Cam Ward. Is he a much better passer than we saw in his rookie season? Yeah, actually saw some flashes of the upside that we could hope for late in the year. And he was throwing to Alec Alimanyer. I threw an extra L in there. Alimanyer and Chimere DK. So that just kind of gives you the idea of what was going on. Like Calvin Ridley is back and healthy, but who even cares at this point? Because now his top 2 are Carnell Tate and Wendell Robinson, brought over with Brian Dable from the Giants. So much better weapons. Dable loves him. Dable can do one thing in offense is create offense. We assume that wasn't just a Bills thing and that was somewhat to do with him and that he hasn't completely lost it by being with the Giants. So upside for Cam Ward, but kind of in the, the Caleb Williams conversation where the chipped in on the ground will matter a little bit, but he really has to take a huge step forward as a passer. So that's why he's down as like a fringe QB2, because I don't know if I trust the Titans and Dable enough. I like the weapons a hell of a lot better than we do last year because now Alimanyer and DK are kicked down to 4th at best, maybe 3 because we can count about Calvin Ridley. But that being said, I see the upside for him, but my preferences are heavily Malik Willis and a lot of Baker Mayfield. CJ Stroud has to throw. Daniel Jones is interesting if he's healthy week 1. I know a lot of people are looking for him, and I've taken him a few spots and got him as a 3rd quarterback in some. Daniel Jones is not a good passer. We know this. He's okay. But the rushing upside really makes it. So those are some of those names. If I left anybody out, like I said, if you want to ask me about somebody specifically, I'm not going to hit every single player. I'm not going to hit every single running back and wide receiver, obviously. So quick hitty, get you in, get you out. Welcome back. Welcome me back. Love you guys. I will be back next week to talk either running back or wide receiver, probably running back because I'm just going to go in order. So until then, go get a dog. They're amazing. Get a rescue. They'll love you forever.